But I think you can still have a top 10 offense. The Eagles had a top 10 offense last season with Jalen Hurts. If you're willing to believe that you can sustainably succeed by building around the running game and what he brings to the table.
I do want to talk about the receivers because there is that narrative that receivers don't want to come here. And I think you're right. The Eagles certainly don't want to be looked upon as an organization where people don't want to come to.
Bird 365, guys. Here we are on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel where you should like, share, and subscribe. Thank you, John. To our show and all the shows on the channel. Hey, we're upgrading here. We've got a guy joining us who absolutely positively has that dog mentality. And that's why we bring him on. That's why the Eagles brought in Zach Pascal. You got to have that dog mentality. Bo Wulf joined us here on Birds 365. How you doing, dog?
Woof, woof. How are you? How are you guys?
Good, Bo. So I'm going to play a game.
Love a game.
Who doesn't belong in this category? And we'll go Calvin Ridley, Allen Robinson, Christian Kirk, Robert Woods, Zach Pascal. Are you excited about the most obvious Eagles free agent signing of all time?
I would say Calvin Ridley is the one who doesn't belong because everybody else is eligible to play this year.
Year.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. This was like, this is the news of the Eagles signing Zach Pascal was like, hey, breaking news, the sun rose today, right? Like everybody knew this was coming. And it's like, it's easy to make fun of because it was so obvious and because Sirianni has talked so much about Pascal in the past and because he is not like a very productive receiver. He's like, we've described him on Birds with Friends as he's like the Jalen Hurts of wide receivers because you always hear that Jalen Hurts is good at everything that you want from a quarterback except throwing the ball. And Zach Pascal is like good at everything you want from a wide receiver except getting open and catching the ball. He's a great blocker. He's got that dog mentality. He runs the right routes. But I mean, his production, his routes, his yards per route run are like, I forget exactly what it is. It's like 98th of 111 over the past two seasons. And that's not just Carson Wentz last year. That's over the past two seasons. But the flip side is the two guys who are below him are Jalen Reagor and Greg Ward. So this is a marginal upgrade for a team that needed some baseline of competency at wide receiver. I think it's a reasonable thing to do. Obviously, I'm expecting it's not going to be a very expensive deal. I think it's going to be hopefully relatively close to the veteran minimum. And if that's the case,
you're safe there, Bo.
Right, and if that's the case, now you can pencil in Zach Pascal as your third receiver with every expectation that whether it's in free agency or in the draft, you're going to find somebody who's pushing him down to wide receiver 4, and that's totally fine.
Fair enough. The Eagles, the stats you just gave about yards per reception are what they are, and they kind of stand starkly against an offense that's supposedly wants to throw the football some. They made a decision in season last year that they needed to run the football more because they weren't throwing it effectively enough. If there are 3 reasons why the Eagles were as bad as they were yards per reception, and they added a guy who's certainly not moving the needle upwards in Zach Pascal, give me the percentage breakdown of these 3 areas. The wide receivers are just not talented enough. They're not good enough. The quarterback isn't talented enough. He isn't good enough to throw it. And the scheme that they're using doesn't raise up, implement, put the players in position to make catches down the field. They're going to raise that average yard per catch. Give me the percentage breakdown on those 3 as to why the Eagles are right now on paper maybe the worst team in the National Football League in that category.
That's interesting because you can imagine an alternate universe where Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins, and call it Zach Pascal are playing with Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady, and they're still very good. That said, you could also imagine Jalen Hurts playing with, Tyreek Hill
and Juju Smith-Schuster.
Right, exactly, and they would be better.
Kelsey, yeah.
But I think you probably do put more on the quarterback. Also because that's the scheme that they have to play with this quarterback. So I would go something like 50% on the quarterback, and then like the scheme you have to play because of him is like 30%, and then the receivers at 20%. How about that?
Okay.
All right, so we're going to blame it on Jalen. So what are we talking about, Bo? Now, the Eagles took Kenny Pickett out to dinner last night, so everybody's going to make a big deal.
So they could all make fun of his small hands
small
as he ate
hands,
food.
exactly.
You do think he ordered sliders
like
instead of a burger?
I
like
said that's why the Eagles wanted to be there, to take a look at the tiny little hands. And
his agent told him to order small food to make the hands look bigger.
Yeah.
My question would be, did he wear gloves during dinner last night?
Yeah.
That's true.
Keep the gloves on all the way through sliders?
Could he handle the steak knife? I think that was the brilliance behind the Eagles' plan.
And the Eagles had the restaurant turn up the air conditioning really cold so that like they could see how he would handle the cold weather.
Exactly, because playing at Pittsburgh doesn't help in that evaluation. But nobody's going to stop talking about the quarterback for what you just said. Basically, nobody believes. I shouldn't say nobody, but there's a lot of people with question marks about Jalen Hurts and his long-term ability to be a high-level thrower in this league. I think we know he has all the intangible stuff, as you mentioned. We know he's got the ability, the off-schedule abilities, the movement skills. But Nick Sirianni's gone on record with this, Bo. His four sort of things he evaluates quarterbacks for. And number 1 and number 2, and he mentions they're way ahead of number 3 and number 4, which are those movement skills and arm strength, are accuracy, number 1, and decision making, or vice versa. I forget. But those are the key things. And when you talk about what Jody just said about the receivers and their ineffectiveness, and you're putting most of it on the quarterback, I mean, where are we with this? Are we in quarterback purgatory?
Well, I think there's a distinction because I think there are other ways to win, right? I mean, we saw it last year. I think it's probably folly to expect that Jalen Hurts can take a leap to be one of the 10 best passers in the league. But I think you can still have a top 10 offense. The Eagles had a top 10 offense last season with Jalen Hurts. If you're willing to believe that you can sustainably succeed by building around the running game and what he brings to the table, helping the running game, and I think that's fine. You know, there's some debate as to whether that will work in the playoffs down the stretch, but we saw last season that it can work. So I don't think that there is a rush to replace Jalen Hurts at this point. I think it's fine to give him another year and see if he is able to take some kind of leap, and if he can be like a top 15 passer while also bringing to the table the stuff that he does with his legs, maybe that's a recipe for sustained success. That said, I mean, watch what they do and not what they say. You know, the Eagles have publicly committed to Jalen Hurts so much, but we also know that they have explored the avenues of potentially trading for Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson. They looked into both of those things. They're looking into this quarterback class. You mentioned Kenny Pickett. I wouldn't be surprised if they add somebody because their quest and Howie Roseman's quest is to find a franchise quarterback. And what he has done this offseason tells me that they don't believe that Jalen Hurts is that guy.
Well, I'm really not trying to pile on with Jalen Hurts, but I want to get your take on this. John has attempted to convince me for the last couple of days that Deshaun Watson isn't here because he has a good relationship with Jalen Hurts, and he didn't want any part of Philadelphia because he didn't want to come in and step on Jalen Hurts' toes. Is that something Eagle fans will be complaining about? They complain enough about Jalen Hurts as it is. If he's the guy who kept them from getting Deshaun Watson, is that only going to make it tougher to be the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles for Jalen Hurts in this town?
Well, if that's the case, then I'm going to write Jalen Hurts a thank you note because I'm very happy that Deshaun Watson is not in Philadelphia. But I don't know if that is the reason. I haven't done the reporting on that. I've heard those rumors as well. But I think that, like, if from an Eagles perspective, I would imagine that Jeffrey Lurie is a little bit frustrated that these two quarterbacks now have both viewed Philadelphia as not a destination worth even considering from what we understand. So, I think Jeffrey Lurie wants to think of the Eagles as a premier franchise and to be sort of cast aside without really much of a consideration by both of those guys, and also to have not been able to land a few of the bigger ticket free agents they've pursued, I think probably stings their ego a little bit.
Yeah, you're right with the wide receivers as well. And with Deshaun, I just want to clarify that it was, if there weren't other options, he would have considered the Eagles. But once there were no criminal charges were taken off the table, you had this explosion of interest, and he has a good relationship with Jalen Hurts. And by the way, Bo, if the Eagles were allowed to bid, Jeffrey Lurie wasn't going to that contract anyway. So even if they got to that table, I don't think he would have been the first 5-year fully guaranteed guy, although he did take on the biggest dead money cap hit. The Eagles finally lost that to Matt Ryan yesterday, but so you never know.
Yeah, I feel like once you cross the threshold of pursuing Deshaun Watson at all, I'm not willing to give you any kind of benefit of the doubt.
So you think he would have went that high if need be?
I don't know. I don't know. But once you like dip your toe in that waters, you're probably willing to go all the way to dive all the way in, right? It's not like like if you're willing to go after this guy who still has 22 civil suits against him, and is like credibly at best like not a great guy. I mean, just to be fair.
It's a good way to describe it.
I'm trying to be as
Wolf, are you suggesting that you can't be partially pregnant? You either got to be in or you're out.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think so. Like, I don't think you can. I don't think you can be like Deshaun Watson curious. I feel like once you've crossed that threshold, you want to make the move.
Well, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. And if the Eagles couldn't get at the bargaining table, which is evident, he wouldn't waive his no trade clause. That maybe turns out to be a good thing for the Eagles. But I do want to talk about the receivers because there is that narrative that receivers don't want to come here. And I think you're right. The Eagles certainly don't want to be looked upon as an organization where people don't want to come to. And I think by and large, that's not the case. I think right now at the receiver position, it is the case. You look at Devontae Smith, sets an Eagles record, certainly great for this organization, whatever it was, 916 yards. Let's be honest. If he's with Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert, he's up at 1,300, 1,400 yards if he can stay healthy. Our teams, our agents, our players just looking at the Eagles right now and saying, well, at this particular position, and more agents, obviously, are they just steering people in other directions? Because ultimately, if you're a receiver in this league, you need traffic to have success and make big money.
I'm sort of on the fence on this because I feel like, yes, it's true that if you're looking for like a 1-year rebound deal to rebuild your value, the Eagles is probably not the best place to do that. However, like they're also going to sign for whatever the top offer is. So maybe it's the case that like if the offers are equal, you probably choose to play for the Rams over the Eagles for sure. But like if the Eagles were willing to pay an extra $1.5 million to Allen Robinson, would he have signed with the Eagles? I don't know. Probably, right? I mean, I wouldn't imagine that they're in the business of leaving money on the table. Maybe Allen Robinson is not the best example because he's played with such bad quarterbacks his whole career that maybe he was desperate to play with a good quarterback. Yeah. But, DJ Chark signing a 1-year, $10 million deal with the Lions, like, is Jared Goff much better than the Eagles? I mean, that tells me the Eagles weren't very interested in him.
Yeah, I went there with DJ Chark earlier, so you and I are seeing that exactly the same. All right, one of my favorite times here on the show, Jody Mack hypothetical question. And there are always layers to it, so I'll lay it out for you, Mr. Wulf. When the Philadelphia Eagles get to the draft some 5 weeks and change from now, when they're on the clock, be it either 15, 16, 19, you can either pick or choose for me how many picks they're going to make. If you say that, Jody, no way they're taking all 3. They're going to trade one into next year. They're going to trade one out of the first round. You can lay it out any way that you want, and there will be a player on the board that is worthy of that level pick at every position. Let's say they take 2. What 2 positions will the Eagles fill? If there is, and this is, yes, very, very already defined question. There's a safety that merits being taken as a safety. There's a wide receiver there. There's a linebacker there. There's a defensive end. There's a defensive tackle. The offensive line. whatever position you want. There's a guy that you're not reaching for to get. By the time we get to the draft, what 2 positions will Eagles fill?
Well, I think that you guys have experienced enough Howie Roseman drafts to know what he prioritizes. And so my answer to that is defensive end and defensive tackle. I think all things equal, he's adding to that defensive line. That's how he wants to build this thing. Safety would be nice, but I don't think the Eagles fully trust their ability to evaluate that position in the draft. Maybe the first round's a little different because it's a higher caliber prospect. Corner, to me, is a possibility. I think that, like, if there was a corner who was graded slightly higher, they would be willing to do it. But all things being equal, I think that we know the positions that they value are defensive line. And so, to me, you're looking at defensive end, defensive tackle.
Bo, let's talk about safety. Are you a little surprised? I think we all kind of thought, well, the Eagles will probably bring one of the 2 starters back. And it looks like they've chosen Anthony Harris. There's always a chance Rodney will be back, but I was at the Maxwell Football Awards, and he wasn't talking like he thought he was coming back. So are you surprised at all that it's Anthony Harris and not Rodney McLeod?
I am. What you said is exactly what my expectation was, that they would bring back one of these 2 guys, and it would probably be Rodney McLeod because my expectation was he would be a little bit cheaper. There is that sentimentality, and my guess is that he would be more willing to transition to a part-time role, whereas I think Anthony Harris is going to expect to be a full-time starter. I mean, he rotated last year with Marcus Epps just like Rodney McLeod did, so it's not like he's flying in blind there. But yeah, I am a little bit surprised. Now Anthony Harris is a year or 2 younger than Rodney McLeod. I don't know. I feel like if the price was equal, you probably go with Anthony Harris, but Rodney McLeod's got an extra year coming off the torn ACL. I don't think it would have been crazy to bring him back instead.
2-parter question for me, Bo, and one of them is going to be, at least a guess. Need some heavy speculation on it from you. Derek Barnett will be signing with what team and for how many years at about what dollar range?
I think he's signing a 1-year deal just because the understanding of him not signing yet tells me the interest is pretty tepid. So I would imagine he wants an opportunity to get back into the free agent market next year after rebuilding his value. If I was him, I would go to that defensive line resurgency program in San Francisco. Go over there, juice up your sack numbers, and hit the road next, or hit the free agency next offseason. I mean, Arden Key was a guy who was released, goes to San Francisco, and all of a sudden he's a priority free agent. I feel like that's where I would go if I was Derek Barnett. I would probably take a little bit less to go there, but I don't know. I don't know if I would rule out him coming back to the Eagles at this point, right?
That, Bo.
That's
what
Mullen said last hour. I'm going, no, he's not coming back here again.
I don't think that's that crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, they're bringing everybody else back.
Yeah. The longer he's out there, and you're right, I mean, he's getting a 1-year deal now. We're past the range of 3 years, $27 million, whatever the valuation was. He's not getting that. So 1 year, $5 million? 1 year,
yeah, that sounds about
million?
right to me. Yeah.
Would the Eagles consider bringing Derek Barnett back at that number?
I think they would.
So do I.
I mean, they still need bodies at defensive end, especially if Hassan Reddick is going to be moonlighting as that Sam linebacker on first and second down. You need bodies. I mean, right now I expect them to add at the top of the draft, but right now it's Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, who's 34 coming off a torn Achilles, and Teron Jackson. That's what they've got.
Yeah.
How much did the Eagles get hurt? And certainly not as much as the player, but Eagles are in that range. And you just said you think they're taking 2 defensive linemen in the first round.
The hypothetical that all things are equal.
Hypothetical, yes, well acknowledged. How much they get hurt by David Ajabu getting hurt? Was he a player they would have been looking at, should be looking at, fits right in that range, and now is an unquestioned, not going to be going at 15 or 16, probably not going in the first round. How much does that hurt the Birds?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a sense of how interested in him the Eagles were particularly, but just from the standpoint of you want an edge rusher, and one of the edge rushers expected to go in the top 20 is no longer going to go in the top 20. That pushes somebody else up the board theoretically. So I would imagine it does have some type of ripple effect.
Odds, Bo, that the Eagles take all 3 of those first-round picks. Give me a number, and give me a number that one of them is an offensive player if they take all three? Do they have enough discipline, in other words, to go defense, defense, defense?
Well, I think you could make the case that that wouldn't be the. I mean, I think they could use a wide receiver for sure.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
they
I don't know if
could.
discipline is the right
Yeah,
thing to me,
maybe not
especially
now since
knowing
they can't get a receiver.
well, and especially knowing that. I mean, really, the truth is offense wins in the NFL, right? Like
Yeah.
defense. It's harder to win by building through defense than it is from juicing up your offense. So I think there's a case to be made that there's all things equal, you should tilt towards the offense. I would say the odds of them making all three picks where they are at 15, 16, 19 are, I don't know, 15%, 20%. But I wouldn't be surprised if they take, they go 15, move from 16 to 25 or something like that, and then take it, or move back a little bit, but not all the way. Because the problem is if there's no quarterback there that somebody wants, who's really given up a lot to move up to 15, 16, or 19, you're probably not getting a first round pick in 2023 in return, right? So your best bet is probably to take a little bit, like a small trade back and get some kind of value. But my odds that they make all three picks in the first round, I would say 45%. I think it's close to 50-50. And then the odds that if they keep all three, they draft at least one offensive player, I think it's like 80%. I would be shocked if they go defense, defense, defense.
Right, if they keep all three. If that's the case, I think we all just kind of acknowledge the place that they could use, although you've already shown, Bo, you believe the Eagles do what the Eagles do, and that's why they go into the defensive line. Well, if that's the case,
Right.
They might take another offensive lineman in the first round of this year's draft, even though it's the biggest
possible.
depth position they have at this point right now on the roster. But why not go there again? Why? Because Eagles do that. Assuming it's wide receiver, where it still seems to us that they have a need to get someone in slotted above a Quez Watkins and or a Zach Pascal. Have you done your homework yet? Have you done your deciding yet out of the first round guys who may or may not be there? Because I don't think there's anyone in this draft that you go, well, he's off the board in the top 5. So if you're past 5, could you fall down to 16 or something? I'm going to put anyone into the mix who is a wide receiver in this year's draft. The Williams kid from Alabama, London from USC, the 2 Ohio State kids, Wilson and Olave Burks. Do you have a specific order yet? Do you have a guy that you think is either going to be off the board, they got no chance, he's gone? Jody, this is the range, and I have these 3 guys in this specific order. Have you done your wide receiver work yet? Have you felt the need to upgrade it since the Eagles haven't gotten a veteran wide receiver via free agency or trade?
Well, the truth is that I view like this is the last week of free agency, and after this, I can really fully dive into the draft. And so I don't have strong opinions yet on the stack rank of those 5 guys. I know what I've read about them and fit wise what seems to make sense to me, but I would be lying if I said I had a strong opinion yet.
All right, Bo, last one from me, and everybody read Bo Wulf at The Athletic with our friend Zach Berman. Birds with Friends, Bo, Zach, Shield Kapadia, the great podcast. And by the way, grading the Zach Pascal move, I like your scale in that he is a droopy dog. He was
Thank
droopy
you.
dog in Famous Dogs.
Zach
I like
Pascal,
that.
Great. Yeah.
Droopy dog. So I'll end it on wide receivers. Jody's talking about the draft, but I want to talk about the narrative in-house. Remember, when the Eagles moved on from Doug Peterson, one of the big things was that staff couldn't develop young players. They couldn't develop young players. They bring in this staff with Nick Sirianni.
Which, by the way, if the idea is that they can't develop young players, why are you letting them pick the players in the draft? You can't that's just bad.
There's a lot
Very
of contradiction there. But let's give the Eagles the benefit of the doubt. They bring in Nick Sirianni. They have all this expertise at the wide receiver position, especially. And to the point last year at training camp, I would often go, wow, Nick spent a lot of time with the wide receivers. He's the head coach of this team. Why don't you go do something else? But my point is, Bo, if Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen and Aaron Moorhead and everybody else and Kevin Patullo and everybody else with experience at wide receiver can't help elevate the Jalen Reagors and J.J. Ortega-Whitesides of the world, what the heck can Zach Pascal do that gets the young receivers on this team on track and better fundamentals and better route running and better technique and attention to detail. Are we being sold a bill of goods with this nonsense?
I think that's a good point. Like, if your selling point is that Zach Pascal is going to like make the wide receivers better, then like what is Aaron Moorhead doing? What is Nick Sirianni doing? What is Kevin Patullo doing? Like, I think that's a fair point. I think that you probably have to take that as, you know, not the truth. And the reason they're signing him is because he's mediocre and they don't have anybody who's mediocre enough to be the number 3 receiver. Like, that's what he's here for. So I think that's fair. I mean, maybe there's a case to be made that like watching somebody do it as opposed to being told it is more effective. You know, whatever they have tried with Jalen Reagor has not worked before. So maybe getting to see this will make some kind of difference in him and something will click. But I think that is probably wishful thinking, and the real reason he's here is because they need a body, and he's a body.
I'm wondering if Zach Pascal is going to get a stipend for assistant coach. If you guys are believing he's going to get the veteran minimum for his salary, is there any way they can funnel him
like the Josh McCown deal?
For being an assistant coach. All right. Again, speculation on your part, Bo Wulf. 9 months from now, 10 months from now, whatever, you're working over your social media and you're continually getting tweets about how did the Eagles not get this wide receiver? And I give you the names who have changed teams this year: Devonta Adams, Allen Robinson, Robert Woods, Juju Smith-Schuster, DJ Chark. We know the names who have gone elsewhere, and we know what deals they got and what they cost, both in salary and or in trades, what you had to give up. Who's going to be the guy that Eagle fans are harping on you with on social media? How did we not do this? How did they get this guy and the Eagles didn't get this guy as a wide receiver? Which one is going to be the one that you're going to have to just roll your eyes when you get the tweet on, yeah, I know, they could have gotten him. They didn't. Let's move on. Who's the guy who's going to be on your timeline the most?
I think Juju is the guy who jumps out to me because he signed for so cheap that it was a deal the Eagles could have easily matched or beaten. I mean, obviously you have to beat the deal for him to go to the Chiefs, but for him to go play with Patrick Mahomes, like if he's healthy, he's also very young. Like if he's healthy, he's going to put up big numbers in that offense, I would imagine, because it's playing with Patrick Mahomes and everybody's paying attention to Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, and like they're a premier franchise in the league right now, so everybody's going to be seeing it. And everybody's going to be thinking the Eagles could have paid him $2 million more, and he would have been in the middle of the field for the Eagles instead. Because like Allen Robinson, you're not going to beat that deal probably. Like DJ Chark, is he really going to put up big numbers in the Lions offense? I feel like Juju is the mix of opportunity and relative costs that Eagles fans might point to.
And that one I can't fault him because John has been selling me so well today about the Eagles aren't an attraction with their passing game being what it is because of what they did last year and because Jalen Hurts is what he is. Yeah, it's Patrick Mahomes. That's the end of the conversation.
Right.
You got a chance to go play with Patrick Mahomes. Guess what? You're going to go play with Patrick Mahomes. So that one you should be able to jerk off pretty easily. Eagles weren't going to be able to get the guy when Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are reaching out and saying, come play with us. Bo Wulf, we appreciate the fact that you played with us today. We need to do this more often. Thank you much. We'll definitely get you on before the draft, big guy.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Our pleasure. Bo Wulf from The Athletic here with us on Birds 365. All right, we still got a couple of minutes left here. We'll come back, a couple more things to kick around. McDonald and McMullen here with you on Birds 3.